So many weeks ago, I had a back and forth with one of my friends. We went to the same secondary school, and I think the same primary school. And I talked about my encounter with him in one of my podcasts. But here he goes. I told him I support freedom, and I gave him reasons why. Of course, as it is always the case, not always, I have met just one guy that responded to me, and he admits, yeah, it's violence, but I prefer it. And that's honest. But as most the case, people get defensive when they know the truth about what freedom is, and their response is usually abusive. They don't attack the argument, but they try to discredit the person making the argument. Sometimes it's direct abuse, not even passive aggressive. So this guy, I gave him my reasons for supporting freedom. He couldn't argue against what freedom is. And of course, he started saying, for example, like, the big enemy, I should be prosecuted for suggesting that there should be no government. All kinds of really off-point topics that has nothing to do with the argument I presented. I simply presented that government is force and that we should minimize it. We should remove force, right? Makes sense. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. But at least we should identify what is it that we are doing. Now, why am I bringing this up? I wanted to point out a particular encounter that happened with me and this guy. He demanded that I stop sending him. I stopped sending him some of my messages on WhatsApp. I said, okay, that's fine. I will absolutely do that. I will respect you. I will stop sending you. That's what one of the things that we talked about, that I should stop sending him messages, because I do send messages to some of my contacts. Not everybody, some of my contacts, particularly him. We are friends, and he's into restructuring Nigeria. But all of a sudden, when I became no government person, he completely became really aggressive and abusive. In any case, so I do send a message because I do send messages to some of my contacts. And I respect that. I stopped. I said, okay, that's your choice. But I posed a question for him. And this was a question. If you could, I said, look at, okay, I'm not going to try to rephrase the question because I can't remember the question. But my question was something like this. That when he asked me to remove him, to stop sending him messages, and I did, he just expressed, like, our union is completely voluntary. Our union is completely voluntary. And he fiercely made use of his freedom to exit out of that union of me sending him messages. And sometimes he do reply, and we do talk about a lot of things, actually. before I totally became a no government guy. So he used freedom to exit out of a voluntary union. And I'm sure he liked it. That was his choice. I don't know if you see the contradiction. The guy who is advocating for compulsory union, which is government, is now telling me that he wants to get out of that union of me sending him messages. So he does recognize voluntarism. And he is exercising voluntarism. But he is advocating forced relationships. Just imagine this. When he asked me to remove him, I would say no. I will keep sending him messages. In fact, I will tell him to pay some money so I could continue to send him. Maybe I could get a new phone or something like that, so I could continue to send him those messages. I mean, what a violation of his own choice that would be. But that is what government is. If you don't support abortion, the government will force you to pay for abortion. The government is not only violating your choice, but it's making you pay for the things that you don't like. So here is a guy who fiercely made use of his freedom to exit out of that union. But he is advocating. He is saying that it is ridiculous that I am the evil for advocating nonviolence. That I am the evil person that should be locked up for advocating his right to do these things. It is bizarre how this exposes the level of how people just don't think. It's just purely emotional, which has to do with our upbringing. So I just thought of that segment, and I really wanted to point out people are can be fiercely independent. I mean, when was the last time you don't want to do something? Imagine if someone has the right over that. Well, you can imagine because there's government all over. But if you are familiar with groups on social media and you belong to one, imagine if you have no choice of exiting out of that group. Not only do you don't have a choice to exit, but you are forced to pay. You are forced to obey certain edicts. You don't even want to be there to belong. Complete violations of choice. And that is force. That is violence. So yeah, he's a guy. Of course, I like to repeat. Here's a guy who tells me to stop sending him messages, but who is telling me, on the other hand, that he's supporting forced union. Maybe I should have told him, you know what? No, you don't have rights to not receive my messages. In fact, you're going to pay for these messages. I mean, how outrageous. So always look for these loopholes when you talk to people, because we all make it unconsciously. Because it really requires thinking, and that's not necessarily what we grow up with. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoy my podcast, please do go to Facebook and search for Nigeria Freedom Radio. Like it, share the post. Any insights, criticisms, comments, you can comment below. Thank you very much again, and I will talk to you soon.